He's not really my boss, so makes it easier.
Yeah. So your grandfather started this?
Grandfather started this.
What year? Remember?
1947.
Got pictures?
Yeah. We got pictures.
We'll have to put those up on the screen. Handle that, Nick.
Yeah.
I'd like to
Yeah,
see
we started
those.
in Welch, West Virginia, McDowell County. You know, at the time, Welch was, a booming place with the coal business. It was like Charlotte, North Carolina, and Welch, West Virginia were like on equal footing about that time. But my grandfather went to Marshall, and he wanted to end up back here in Huntington. So he ended up being the Pontiac dealer here in 55, and then moved here to this location in 1970. And then, of course, my father worked for him, and I always heard stories about my father and my grandfather. Man, they butted heads quite.
Did they?
Oh yeah, which I think is pretty normal in family business. I really think that's why most family businesses don't work out, is not because of anything anybody did wrong, and it was just really hard to deal with a sibling or a parent as your boss.
I get it. Yep.
It's
not hard for you, is it?
He's not really my boss, so makes it easier.
But, I'd heard those stories, and when I came back to work, or when I came here in 97 and said, all right, I'm going to go full time, one of the things I said was, no matter what happens, I'm going to try to keep a good relationship with my father. I said I would rather go down with the sinking ship than to mess up our relationship.
No question.
So we had a great relationship. We really did. We had a good time here.
Work well together?
He was my mentor and my best friend.
The cool part about that is you were cognizant of that going in.
Right.
Because it could have been like you said, most families just hate one another, or not, I don't know if hate's the right word, but, knowing that going in and maybe having different expectations of how you handle conflict and difference of opinions and so forth, I could imagine that probably helped that relationship.
I'm sure it did.
How was it with him? Did he feel the same way? I mean, it sounds like he did.
I think so. He was playing golf 2 or 3 times a week towards the
like father, like son.
I got it. Level. One of these days, maybe, Cledus, but I'm not there yet.
No.
But unfortunately, he was diagnosed with. I came to work here full time in '97, and in 2006, he basically got a death sentence on cancer, and he was dead 14 months later in '07. So I was around long enough to figure out how to run the place, basically, and then we had a year of him training me to do what he had been doing, the last part of it that I didn't know, and then he was gone. So I've been on my own since '07.
Let me ask you a question. How was that last year?
Business wise, or
just dad and son wise?
Oh, it was good. We played. Well, that's the only time we ever played in the father-son tournament at Glade Springs. You heard about that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's supposed to be a great tournament, right? That's the only time we ever managed to play it. We played in it, and that was 3 months before we passed. I think August of '07, and he was dead in November of '07. But he was in Florida a lot. He went to what's the place in Jacksonville?
Ponte Vedra?
Well, the
TPC.
He was there, but I'm thinking of the medical facility.
Oh, I got you.
Anyway, he was getting a lot of. They were doing experimental cancer treatments on him down there. He had a place in Vero Beach, so I really didn't see a whole lot of him that last year. In all fairness, he was trying to save his life, and I was trying to keep this place going. So, for me as a 60-year-old man,
having been raised without one, it makes my heart happy to see a grown man emotional about his dad, because there was a time, like I said, I grew up pretty much my whole life. I had a stepdad who I loved with a passion, but it still never took the place of, my father. And, when I found out he had cancer as well, I was living in Florida, and I hadn't spoke to him in years, and I called him and I said, "Hey, I'm coming home." And he said, "For what?" I said, "Because I'm going to do what a son's supposed to do. I'm going to come home and take care of my daddy." And he said, "No use in it now." And I said, "Oh, there's use in it, and you can't stop me, because that's my job as a son to do." And that's why I asked you, how was the last year of your life with him? Because when I went home, I lived in my dad's basement, and the last 6 months of his life was the best 6 months I'd had out of 48 years, And since we're just being super vulnerable, and I think these are good things to talk about, it does me good, is I was downstairs in the basement one evening, and I heard a bunch of rumbling upstairs, and I thought, man, maybe he fell or something, and I went upstairs, and it's pretty deep here, but hey, that's what we do. I'm just going to tell you anyway. And his bedroom's in the back down the hallway, and I walked in the hallway. There's a little dim light in the hall, and my dad came out, and he had a gun in his hand. And I said, there's three things can happen here. He going to shoot me, he going to shoot himself, or he going to shoot us both. And I said, "Dad, why do you have that gun?" And he took a couple of steps towards me, and he pulled the hammer back on it. And he said, "You know why I have this gun?" And I said, "No, I don't, but please give me that gun." And he said, "No." He said, "As a young boy, I had to watch my mother die of cancer." And he said, "As a grown man, I had to watch my daddy, your granddaddy, die of cancer." And he said, "Now you as a grown man, it's your turn to watch your daddy die of cancer." And he said, "I've suffered my whole life." And he said, "I don't want to suffer no more." And he raised the gun up and he said, "Kill me." And I said, "Dad, I can't kill you, And he said, "Well, if you won't kill me, would you do me a favor?" And, by now I'm traumatized, and I said, "Whatever you want." He said, "Would you sit down at the table with me?" And I said, "Absolutely." And you have to understand, that's a small thing for probably somebody like you and your family that grew up, maybe had dinner. I never had one. I never sat at a table with my dad. And we sat down at the table, and he said, I didn't want no kid when you were born. That's my fault. I was a horrific dad, and I'll have to pay a price for it. But he said, I'm going to ask you one favor, and you don't have to do it. And this is the best part of the story. And I said, anything you need. And he said, "You think there's any way you could forgive me?" And it took me maybe a second and a half to go, all is forgiven. And it was the best emotional feeling that I've ever had as an adult. To one, it was the only time my dad had ever looked at me and said, with honesty and not out of alcohol or drunkenness or a motive or whatever, he was genuinely asking for forgiveness. And I was so happy that I was man enough with a heart big enough to go, absolutely. It's all I ever wanted. And that son of a bitch reached in his pocket, in his back pocket, and I thought, he got another gun. And he reached in his pocket, and he got his wallet out, and he pulled a $100 bill out of his pocket, and he said, "Would you mind running down to the steakhouse and getting me and you a steak and buy us 2 beers? I'd like to have a beer with my son before I die." And I went and got it, and we watched a NASCAR race, sat beside my dad, and he died a couple of weeks later. So what a gift I was given. because I didn't have that, that dad, to do things with, or to teach me about money, or give me discipline. Mom did all she could. And so I have just such a big heart, and it fills my heart full when I see a grown man sit next to me, to have tears in his eyes about, just wanting to make sure that he was cognizant to not let a damn business ruin a lifetime of a family. So sorry about all that, but it is what it is.
Where did this go wrong?
Yeah. This would be a documentary on Cinemax, I guess. You shouldn't even heard all that. You go to the military. We'll handle the business. We got this. So,
Oh my God.
all right, we're gonna get out of here. God bless you. Take care of yourself. Thanks for sharing that, man. It's great. Thank you. Yeah. See you guys. All right. Bye.